Michele, what message do you feel would you like to get out to the world about the House of Grace?
Well, it's hard to choose because there are so many. The Christian community in Israel comprise about 2% of the Israeli population. They're a really tiny and struggling community, and yet they're really contributing to Israeli society. The vast majority of the prisoners are not Christian, they're Muslim, and yet they're being taken care of and nurtured. You know, the rate of relapse for former prisoners at the House of Grace is very much lower than it is in other halfway houses. So the House of Grace, on a larger platform, is helping Israeli society by rehabilitating people who have done bad things, who truly were criminals, but who served their time, who seem to genuinely want to enter society and stay out of prison and become better people. What message would you like to convey about House of Grace?
Just what one family can do, over a period of 40 years. They're still so committed. I almost wish there was an open house that, people could come and just talk to ex-prisoners, talk to the staff.
Right.
It was powerful. It was powerful. And again, the Christian, principles. Every day they are living those principles. It's, part of who they are.
I see that. They really are the embodiment of Christian values, of Catholic values.
Michele, of everything we saw there, what moved you the most?
One of the things that impressed me most was the fact that one of the former prisoners turned counselor is someone named Mohammed Sabeh, and he was in prison for years and years and years and years. And he was re-imprisoned and he was released, and he decided to go to the House of Grace because he had heard good things and he knew that he couldn't re-enter society and stay out of prison on his own. And he was so moved and so changed by the experience of being at the House of Grace that he himself started to take classes in order to become certified as a counselor. And it showed me that you really can change. Which are your favorite photographs? Which are the ones that have stuck with you the most?
There was a young boy, Mohammed, and he just had this beautiful smile, the innocence, the joy in his expression. He was excited to be there. And I was comparing it to one of the photos I took of Abdullah, who had been in prison for 28 years.
Yes.
And I was comparing, and I was saying, what happened if Abdullah had had the opportunities that Muhammad had had? So it was like the portrait, just kind of comparing two different portraits and just showing what the House of Grace can do for people.
Exactly. And it took these children at risk off the streets. I kept asking the kids, well, what would you be doing if you were not at this camp? They said, well, I'd be out on the street getting into trouble. And that's what all of the former prisoners had told us. They got into trouble starting when they were teenagers. And they said they wished that someone intervened.
Yeah. I was able to go into one of the group therapy sessions. I was just so impressed with the ability of these men to express themselves. Expressing yourself emotionally is so important in terms of change. And I could feel the tension and the excitement and all the other emotions that they were feeling.
What impressions did you take from covering the story?
I was amazed that former prisoners were there and they were having a meal. And they were having a meal with the family. And it was amazing. There was no separation between the family, the shahads, the sons, and the ex-prisoners that were there. They treat them with respect. And I think that is so important in changing somebody's life.
The lasting impression for me was the power of forgiveness and the incredible trust with the lessons taught by Christ. And I thought that was really beautiful.
As a photojournalist, it's always such a challenge to have trust from the people that we're working with. I've worked with you for over 15,
maybe 20
years. And it's just such an honor to work with you. I love going to Israel. I love working on stories because they're always so challenging.
There's so many moving parts to the House of Grace, so many moving parts to the story. And we wanted to make sure we didn't leave anyone out or anything out.
Yeah. A story like this, you need a few days to do, to make sure you to interview who you need to interview. I'm able to photograph. They were
long days.
Yeah. So I took this one group photo towards the end, and by the end they were comfortable with us, and I wish we had to have more time to spend there. I mean, if I lived in Israel, I'd be volunteering.
It was really a life-changing experience. And I can't say that about most of the articles that I write, and I write hundreds. Not everyone, sticks with a journalist, and this one will always stick with me. CNEWA and their donors are so invaluable because the Christians of the Holy Land have so little money. They're highly educated, but they still struggle very much. And they struggle not only to support their Christian institutions, they struggle to support their own families very often. These donations are often the difference between an after-school program. For example, the House of Grace during the year has an after-school program. Children at risk have a place to go and be nurtured and to receive tutoring thanks to CNEWA's generosity and thanks to your generosity. I don't know what they would do without it.